Hello everybody, I am Whittler Fam and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over some of the cards from Brilliant Stars, the set that is highly anticipated for Pokemon TCG players and collectors. Be coming out in the next few weeks as of recording this. I believe pre-releases will be next week, and then the street date will be 2 to 3 weeks away. So this should come out right before then. And quick reminder before we get into the video, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button if you want to see more videos. And if you like what you're seeing today, hit the like button. So let's get started. We're doing an overview of Brilliant Stars cards and talking about the cards we just can't let go. And what we're really trying to get into, the meat and potatoes of this video, is looking at design of cards, card design in general. And so what are we looking for? Brilliant Stars is great. So why is it great? What are the things that make the players in particular, the Pokemon TCG players, love this set? And it really comes down to the design of a few standout cards. You could probably pick out 5 cards from this set that are all going to be great cards, but the reason they're great cards is they're pretty much reprints or very close to reprints of cards we're very familiar with in the past. So how much influence is a card set like this going to have over us, whether it's nostalgia or it's the mechanics of the game? What ultimately decides what makes this set good? Because I'm seeing a trend with a lot of these cards that are coming back. They're definitely trying to capture something here. Nostalgia is definitely a factor, but I also think that the mechanics of the game and the mechanics of the abilities they're giving us definitely don't want to forget that the V-Star powers that are coming back are so similar to something that wasn't gone for very long in the TCG. I mean, we just had GXs in the format a year and a half to 2 years ago. And so now we're seeing the return of a once-per-game effect like V-Star powers. We're also seeing that the Pokemon Company is acknowledging that there are things that they want to course correct. We've had big 3-prize Pokemon for several years now. We've gone from big basic Pokemon to big evolution Pokemon to Exodia-style cards where you need 4 pieces to put them together and you have big HP and they're worth 3 prizes. And some people are fed up with it. I myself, I'm kind of indifferent. I like it, but I obviously like 1 and 2 prize Pokemon a little bit more. So can we expect power creep to creep back down, and can we expect technical boosts to gameplay? So more search oriented as opposed to just play the card to draw cards, play the card to gust for game, gust game. Can we see a deliberate change in what the card designers are doing here to create a game that is varied as well as still fast-paced and fun? Because I don't think the game is slowing down by any means. I think if Arceus V-Star is any indication, it is definitely staying fast. And let's take a look at some of those cards. But before we look at some of those cards, let's go to the past and see if we have any similarities between the new cards and the older cards. And when I saw Arceus V-Star, I looked at that Starbirth ability and thought, that is crazy awesome. And what was the first thing that came to my mind? Well, it was actually Pidgeot from the Ruby Sapphire series, RS through PK, as some retro heads or players of the past want to call it. The Pidgeot with the Pokepower Quick Search. This was once per turn you could do this, and you couldn't use more than 1 Quick Search per turn. And in typical games, if you got Pidgeot out early, I'd say you're probably going to use this throughout the entire game, but you're only limited to once per turn. Now the Starbirth, however, is balanced because you get to search for 2 cards, but you can only do this once per game. So I see a lot of similarities between the two in terms of mechanical designs. And I also think of Magcargo, because Smoothover, which also was in the RS through PK series, in the Ruby Sapphire series, we also had a pretty much spiritual reprint of that in Celestial Storm, which was in 2018. And that was a similar effect, except it searched for any card and put it on top of your deck. So we have these mechanical effects returning because a lot of players probably aren't used to super strong effects like this, especially when you slap it onto a big 280 HP card that's hitting for 200 damage and charging up your Pokemon V. with more basic energy, so it's ramp, it's powerful search. You don't even have to play this Pokemon in a deck with Pokemon V if you don't want to. You could just use this for the Star Birth V-Star power. So really, really cool design. I like that a lot. Another card that made me think of cards of the past was the Bibarel that we're getting. That's going to have the ability, we're not sure what it's called, but one of the translations is efficient front teeth, or once during your turn, draw cards until you have 5 in hand. And we've just had 2 Pokemon with abilities like this in the past 5 years. One was Silvally GX with Disc Reload with the same text, and one was Octillery with Abyssal Hand, same text again. Again, card draw is really, really good. And way before Octillery, we had an Electrode in the format that would allow you to draw until you have 4 cards in hand. And I believe it was used sparingly throughout certain decks that needed the setup. But way before that, we also had the Clay Doll from Great Encounters in the Diamond and Pearl era with Cosmic Power. This was an insane card. Once during your turn, you could choose up to 2 cards from your hand, put them on the bottom of your deck, and if you did that, you would draw cards until you have 6 in hand. So maybe someday, little Clay Doll that could will return to us. I mean, we got that Celebrations reprint, of course, so that's great to see. Some retro love there. But maybe we'll get something as powerful as that someday. But until then, we have the Bibarel with Bibarel, however you pronounce it, with his big front, efficient teeth, drawing you cards. Very good for setup decks. Probably going to be really good for single prize decks. So as you can see, there is a regard for older effects and reprinting them. Now, one could argue this is derivative, and all they're doing is just going back, instead of going back to the drawing board, they're just going back to old ideas and saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's perfectly fine with me. But the other thing I'm thinking is with the Starbirth V-Star power coming, I'm seeing that, like, okay, we're going in a vastly forward direction. We are powering up those old mechanics and giving them some nos, so to speak, and really powering up, because obviously they want to bring back mechanics. I think that's their intention. I think mechanics is just as important to them as powerful Pokemon dealing damage, doing the 2-shot war, which is what we're kind of in right now with Pokemon. And we'll get into the damage stuff here in a little bit, because I also want to take a look at some of the other Pokemon that have spiritual reprints, spiritual things going on. Now, the top 2 examples, we have a Tapu Lele next to the new Luminion V. And both of these are similar because of that Wonder Tag ability and Luminion's new Luminous Aura or Luminous Orb ability that when you bench it, you get to search your deck for a supporter. That's just added consistency. It's fantastic. It's great to see. But also, they balanced it out so it's not just easy to slap a double colorless energy or the new double turbo energy as we're going to have. You can't just slap that down and do the attack immediately. Instead, you also need the water energy and the double colorless. But I think what's important to take away here is bringing back a Wonder Tag style ability is very, very good. Even going so far as to matching the HP is great. The big difference here, of course, is they put a Pokemon on it that they have not printed a card for in a very long time. And this is probably just nostalgia, but also a little bit of bias towards other Pokemon. But because Luminion's not very well known, I doubt the price of this card is going to be very, very high. Unless this becomes like a staple, like 2 of in all kinds of decks. And I don't see it being like that. We're in a very different format than we were when Tapu Lele came out. So, obviously different factors there. Another card that has very big potential, but differing factors going on for it is the Raichu V coming out in Brilliant Stars. Very similar to the Blacephalon. Very close in HP, both having similar attack costs, but of course no GX attack. I think the weakness is relevant considering the Pokemon that are running around in the format right now. The Raichu V has a single lightning energy attack that you can use on your first turn, and you can search your deck for a lightning energy attached to one of your Pokemon. So fast charge. But then its big 2 lightning energy attack is doing 60 damage for each lightning energy on the field that you want to discard. So you can get that up to 300 damage or 360 damage if you want. But instead of lost zoning the energy like Blacephalon did, the Raichu V is discarding the energy. That means you can recycle that energy and use it again and again. Now, they're not the same card because different formats. One, Blacephalon was an Ultra Beast, so it had the benefit of Beast Ring at the time, which was a great card that just charged up energy during the mid-game, so it was a very good tempo card. And the other thing that Raichu has going for it is that fighting weakness. Now, I do think Raichu is going to be very, very good. I do think Raichu might actually set a different sort of pace of the game. Like if a lot of Raichu decks just start popping up, then people have to deal with this Raichu and its damage output and the speed that it can get that energy and damage output out. The other two card examples that I have on the bottom are a little different. Again, I'm going over mechanics and how they're similar. And although Leafeon V-Star is nothing like Leafeon Level X, there's a spiritual succession to this. The thing that I find similar between the two is I think the art, first of all, is sort of similar. They're kind of going for the similar same thing, Leafeon jumping out of the card. But also, I think the big thing here is Leafeon Level X evolves from Leafeon, and Leafeon V-Star evolves from Leafeon V. One is a 1-prize Pokemon, one is a 2-prize Pokemon. And of course, these Level X's back in the day did have access to Expert Belt, so you could make them 2-prize Pokemon and give them extra HP and extra damage. So there was that factor. Leafeon V-Star, however, is already 2 prizes. So what we're going for here is the similarities between the two are the inspiration of the V-Star mechanic as far as evolution goes. So very, very similar to Level X's. So they may not have the same ability, same attack, but they have very similar things going on for them. Excuse me. I've been getting over a wonderful sickness, you know. And I also have this example of Hippowdon Level X next to Charizard V-Star. Again, V-Star, very similar to Level X, but the thing I want to point out here is that even before V-Star powers, before GX attacks, the card designers were already kind of experimenting with once per game effects. And that was shown by the awesome Pokepower Sand Reset. Once during a game, each player shuffles all cards in play, excluding Pokemon and supporter cards. So it would be all cards attached to things, whether it's energy or tools or a stadium being in play. Shuffles those cards into their deck, and you can't use more than one Sand Reset Pokepower each game. So, again, very similar in fashion. I don't believe they did any other Pokepower similar to this. I think this was literally the only one once per game. But they were already trying out effects and mechanics that were a once per game thing. So the inspiration does come from ways back, I'm very sure. So all these examples you see before you are just mechanics that we've seen before, mechanics being brought back. And the coincidence here is that all these great mechanics that a lot of Pokemon players who have played competitive throughout the years will probably tell you that these were great mechanics at the time. These were great cards, great attacks, great abilities, great V-Star, great GX attacks. All these things, very, very good for the game because of the sheer variety and playability. Because the more interactions you have with your opponent, player interaction, it increases the skill level and the amount of things that can possibly happen in any given game of Pokemon. So I think all of these are great examples that Brilliant Stars is trying to bring these mechanics to light. I don't think they're derivative at all. I think putting a new spin on them is always a great idea. Now, let's talk about power creep real quick, because as you saw on the last slide, we had Charizard V-Star with that huge amount of damage. And the question comes to mind, is that balanced? Are we getting away from these huge HP cards? We start all the way back from base set where we had 70 HP. I think the biggest HP then was 100 or 120. Then you have Blaziken EX in the first EX era, which is doing 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon anywhere. Then you get to the new EX era where you have Mega Evolutions with Spirit Links. Let's just break the mechanics of the game and give you Mega Evolutions, and let's let you Mega Evolve on the first turn, and let's let you do this huge amount of damage with Emerald Break for tons of damage based on how many bench Pokemon you have. And then we get to the tag team era, because GXs were pretty cool, pretty awesome. Having GXs attack, having multi-prizers, great. Then we get to tag teams, these huge basic Pokemon with 2 or more Pokemon on the card, doing huge attacks, and just being absolutely ridiculous beat sticks. And they were overpowered when they first came out, but as each set came along, they got more and more powerful, and that's pretty much what you saw in the metagame, until you finally get to literally a card bigger than a tag team. And there's even a trailer, if you find it out there somewhere. I believe Pikachu and Zekrom are standing on a cliff, and they see a card in the distance, and we don't know what it is at the time, but it's clearly a huge VMAX Pokemon. I think it's even Eternatus VMAX. So the question is, where do you go from here? Do you just keep going bigger and badder with the HP? And I say no, because eventually, one, you're going to run out of room for your dice, or you're going to need special counters, or two, you're getting to damage that's so ridiculous that no Pokemon anywhere below 100 HP or 150 HP is ever going to be able to keep up with these behemoths. So I think Charizard V-Star and Arceus V-Star and the other V-Stars in general are a very good example of pulling it back and creeping that power back a little bit. So, Charizard, for example, has some expensive damage attacks. It's got a cost, 2 fire and a colorless for explosive fire, 130. But to do more damage, you also have to damage yourself. So there is a specific combo that you would have to use that with in Standard, which would be Magma Basin, and it charges up fire Pokemon. And again, the V-Star power attack is also very expensive, but at a cost. 4 energy. You have to discard 2 energy to use this attack, and also it's once per game. Now, if you slap a damage modifier on that, like a Choice Belt, to boost the damage up an extra 30, that Star Blaze is able to knock out the biggest Pokemon in the game, the Eternatus VMAX, right here. So, do I think this is a balanced and better way to go with power creep? Yes, I absolutely agree. Why? Because this is once per game. Also, we have less HP. We're not pushing past 300. We're granting Pokemon the benefit of the doubt here by saying they see the error of their ways, so perhaps they're going to scale back. Now, do I think this is the last time they're going to print 3 prize Pokemon? No, absolutely not. Maybe they're sunsetting VMAXs, but we're possibly going to have more 3 prizers in the future. But probably never going to be as simple or as aggressive or as easy to use as Pikachu and Zekrom and the other tag team Pokemon. I think that's just ridiculous. I think it was something where they were like, let's just get out there and throw 3 of the poster child Pokemon, Pikachu, Charizard, and Mewtwo, and put them on awesome cards that players want to use. And it, of course, got out of hand. So, there's yin and there's yang. And I think this is an appropriate balance and a nice scaling back to a easier power creep level to deal with. But not just talking about Pokemon cards here. We're also talking about the trainers and the energy. And in order to bring balance to this farce of a metagame that we're in, it's probably a good idea to introduce cards that give single prize Pokemon and multi-prize Pokemon all a fair shot. I think Choice Belt here is a very good one. It's boosting the damage dealt to Pokemon V by 30. And then Ultra Ball is another fair thing to put into the game because it's great search. It's expensive search. I do think some people complained at one point that Ultra Ball was way too good in the formats it was in. But I think, again, Ultra Ball comes at a cost. It searches for any Pokemon, but your cost is you play this and you have to discard 2 cards from your hand. You can't play it with small hands. You could play it with big hands, but you have to get rid of stuff. So I think that is a fair cost to have in the game. Another really good one here, probably good for multi-prizers just as well as single prizers, is the new Cynthia's Aspiration. Great card that lets you draw until you have 5 cards, but if any of your Pokemon were knocked out last turn, draw until you have 8 cards in hand. This is a strict upgrade to the card we currently have in the format in Standard, Bruno. Now, Bruno has the benefit of it's a single strike card, so you get things with it like using it to draw extra cards if you have a Tower of Darkness in play. It also is just searchable because it's a single strike card, so that's all fine and dandy. But I think Cynthia is a strict upgrade all on its own. And then finally, Double Turbo Energy. Another spiritual successor to an old card that players are familiar with, and whether or not everybody likes that card is of an opinion of many others. I, for one, really like that we're getting double turbo energy in the format that can go onto anything, but it nerfs the Pokemon it's attached to by reducing damage by 20. And all of this is to say that all the inspiration comes from cards that we already know and already enjoy. Luxury Ball was in existence back in the Diamond and Pearl era, and it searched for anything, and it was balanced because if you had any in your discard pile, you couldn't play this card. So essentially one copy was really all you wanted to play in most decks. Expert Belt, a great card to enhance damage and enhance HP, but at the cost of making that Pokemon worth one more prize card. Again, there were no multi-prizers back then, so this was the balance there. And in my personal testing and playing of the game, I thought Expert Belt was a fantastic card because the player got to choose if they wanted their Pokemon to be worth extra prizes, but also the benefits were so good. The extra 20 damage was super relevant. The extra 20 HP was super relevant. But you have a cost, of course. The cost is that's an extra prize if your opponent manages to return a KO to you. Cynthia's Feelings existed back then as well. It was a shuffle into your deck, draw 4, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out, draw 4 more. Great for decks that wanted to set up. Great because you knew you were going to have at least 5 or 6 knockouts throughout the game, so Cynthia's Feelings was going to be a live card most of the time. And then, of course, we have many, many reprints of Double Colorless Energy, and although this wasn't reprinted until the Heart Gold Soul Silver era, and then multiple times throughout the Black and White era and the X and Y era, we've gone a long time without it. But this card was a staple to so many decks. Again, possibly a derivative card. Maybe some of these cards are just derivative repeats of the cards you're seeing, or, you know, vice versa. It's of my opinion, these were good cards, and balancing them out for future-proofing these cards, essentially, is perfectly fine with me. Because the more variety and designs we have for cards, I think the better this card game is looking. So, to wrap up this video in a nice, neat, tidy little package, I just want you to think about some of the cards that you're getting now. Think about some of the cards we've had in the last 5 years or 10 years, and take a look over the card pool. Is there anything Pokemon Company may be missing? Is there more they could do? Are these cards just enough? Is this just enough to refresh the game and make it a fun time to play? And don't get hung up on the details of one prize Pokemon getting the shaft. I think for a long time, there are really good single prize Pokemon that just get outclassed by either other single prize Pokemon or multi-prize Pokemon. And we're slowly but surely getting back into a day where those single prize Pokemon will have their heyday. I mean, right now in Standard, I think there's a fair amount. There's not a lot of them, but there's a fair amount, and it's because they target the metagame and they have such a fair shot at taking out the other guys. And examples like that would be Galarian Weezing with the Inteleon package, or the Moltres box, the single prize Bird box. Heck, even Decidueye was doing super well for a long time. And Mad Party is probably getting a resurgence. You can try some of those rogue one prize decks and just try to fiddle with them as much as possible, but don't get hung up on the fact that one prizers don't have everything they need, because I think ultimately what is important is, are the mechanics of the game making for the game to be fun? Is it replayable? And are we able to get those gosh darn 3 prize Pokemon out of here? So if it's fair and everything has like a nice little rock, paper, scissors sort of feel to it, then it's probably doing pretty good. So again, I've been rambling a lot about card design, and this isn't really a review of the new cards, but more so just take a look back at some of the old cards, see the inspiration, and maybe let's think about, where can we go from here? Can we see other stuff? I mean, heck, they're reprinting Dark Patch for the next set in May, which that's another video for another day. That's ways off, but let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like that we're seeing old cards coming back in a new fashion? Do you think that Pokemon Company is going to keep pushing mechanics over huge, big damage, go boom sort of strategies for the card game? Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Thanks for watching the video today. I really enjoy when you guys watch these videos. It's a lot of fun putting them together, And I'll come up with another fun topic next time. And look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.